right. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? And we're going to have some logistics here at the beginning. So if a few people joined a little late, no problem. So welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today for this overview and conversation about managing Q&A in the classroom. Just a couple of logistics. We are recording this session, so we'll share it afterward, and you can feel free to share that with any of your colleagues who weren't able to make it. We would love it if you had a chance to introduce yourself in the chat feature. Just let us know who you are, where you're coming from. If there's anything specific that you want to make sure we cover today, let us know. And that's also the place, if you have questions along the way, feel free to put them in that chat feature. You can also post them to the Q&A, but chats allows everybody to see them, which is obviously something we're big proponents of. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Danielle Bonner, who will be monitoring the chat. She'll be answering some questions there, or she'll just interrupt me as we go so we can take care of those questions live. So for those of you that aren't familiar with InScribe, we are a virtual community platform that is designed to help facilitate the scalability of support for students. So today we're really going to focus on the use of InScribe in the classroom and ways that we can help folks think about scaling that support and making it more effective for faculty, TAs, and the students that are being served. My name is Katie Kapler. I'm the one that's going to be guiding us on our conversation today. I am the co-founder and CEO at InScribe, and I'm really excited to have you here. My whole background has been working in the education technology space, and specifically working on technology to facilitate digital and distance learning. So I'm really excited to have you here, and hopefully this is the first of many conversations that we get to have together. So I'll start with a sort of existential question. Why are we here today? And of course, we have some ideas based on our conversations with folks about why we're here. Feel free to add your own thoughts to the chat, but at its heart, managing questions and support in the classroom is really hard. A lot of faculty are teaching really big classes or maybe multiple sections at a time. And so a lot of the things that we hear when we talk to faculty, number one, the number of emails that they receive, and not just during a certain period of time, but literally at any time of day or night, they're coming into the inbox. So of course that can be really overwhelming, takes a lot of time to go through all those emails. And it's possible that certain emails just get missed when you have that much going on. Sometimes things get skipped. So if that's the way that students are trying to reach out to you when they're not in the class, it can become really hard to manage. Through that process, I know a lot of you are also answering the same questions, 15 or 100 times every semester. And so it feels very inefficient to have these questions managed in this kind of one-off way. One thing we also hear from faculty is when they do set up time for students to meet with them, either in person or virtual office hours, for example, it's not always the right students that show up. Sometimes it's already the students that are high achieving that come to those meetings, and they find that the students who are really struggling, who may be kind of shy to make those introductions, never actually speak up at all. And then the last point is, for those of you that do have TAs or other learning assistants that help facilitate your classroom, sometimes it can be hard to keep track of what they're doing. So you want to make sure that they're being responsive to their students and that they're having some opportunities to be efficient with their time. But in a lot of cases, it's difficult to kind of keep track of that. And then at the end of the day, the term ends. All your hard work answering those questions and building that knowledge base for your students often just gets lost. When you start a new term, you have to start from scratch. And so you're repeating a lot of these challenges over and over again. And so at InScribe, we wanted to create a platform that would really improve this process for you. So a couple of the benefits that we're going to talk about today. Number one, taking all of those questions and putting them into a centralized space that's really easy to manage, not just perhaps for an individual classroom, but even across all the sections that you're teaching. The idea that when you answer a question, it is immediately visible to all of your students so that they can see it and get the answer they need without asking you again, and that they can find those really easily because everything is organized by topic and searchable. Of course, we want to make sure that you can see the activity of the members of your community. So you want to see like who is participating, what students are really asking a lot of questions, what students are viewing content, and also what are my TAs doing? Are they able to stay on top of things? These kinds of platforms, InScribe in particular, are really great for helping your shy students come forward. So whereas raising your hand in a classroom can be very intimidating, when you have a digital space, you can kind of take your time, formulate your question. It's a little easier to engage, and we'll look at some of the tools that we have to make that even better. And then you also just have students that are busy and maybe they can't make it to those office hours. And so having a space that's kind of always available to them actually encourages them to participate as well. And then finally, we'll look at how you can take what you've done in a semester in InScribe and actually roll it over so that all the FAQs and content that you've developed is already there for your next set of students ready to go in that subsequent term. And you're not losing all that work that you're doing. Before we jump into the demo, I just want to touch on a couple of institutions and use cases that we've worked on. And I think, Danielle, we covered these use cases in great depth in previous webinars. And I think, Danielle, you might have the links to those webinars. So
yes.
Okay, terrific. So I'm just going to give you a quick overview, but she'll drop those links in. And if you want to go back and watch and kind of really dig in deep with those conversations, you're welcome to do that. So one is the Kelley School of Business from Indiana University. They have been using InScribe in one of their MicroMasters courses, so around enterprise data management. And just a few of the statistics so you can get a sense, one, of the scalability of a platform like this, and also the reusability. So they had almost 2,000 students active in their courses every month. And in a single semester, we saw about 1,300 conversations getting started. So questions getting asked or students reaching out to each other. And you know, all of those questions got answered. Some had multiple responses, but I think a really great note here is the number of views that they got on the content that they posted. So almost 100,000 views. So you get a sense of, once a question and an answer has been posted, the number of students that can then come back and reuse that content. Another great example is Arizona State University. So Kelley School, this is a graduate program, you know, again, at the master's level. At Arizona State University, they actually built their learning communities around undergraduate first-year math. So this is college algebra. So a very different student population, but a very similar need. They actually, you know, a big institution, they have a lot of students learning math, over 8,000 students coming through those math courses, about 3,000 questions asked. And again, you see the huge number of views that they saw on those questions that were being posted. But I think what's even more exciting about ASU is the impact that they saw. So these numbers represent the growth in successful completion of those courses between fall 2019, when they were not using InScribe, and 2020 or 2021, when they had put the product in place. And you can see here, you know, averaging about an 8% improvement in the number of students who were successfully completing those courses. And in fact, that was even I think a 10% improvement of the number of students that were getting A's. So I think it's a nice demonstration of able to do this at scale, very manageable for the faculty and the TAs to stay on top of it, but also having the ability to improve outcomes along the way. So I just want to give those numbers up front, some things to think about, maybe generating some questions, and also to just give you a context as we move into the demo, and you can kind of think about how these things might work in your classroom. So with that, let's jump over and take a look at the product itself. Any questions, Danielle, before I jump in here?
Nope, I shared the two webinar recordings in the chat, and we'll also share those after the today's webinar as well.
Perfect.
No questions at this point in time, Katie.
Awesome, thank you. So I'm going to demo today from the experience that is really the core experience that you and your students would have, which is from the learning management system. So you guys probably recognize this. This is Canvas. Some of you may use that. Just know that InScribe integrates into all the major learning platforms. So whether it's Blackboard or Moodle, we even have an edX integration, D2L. What you're going to see here is going to be very similar across all of those experiences. Of course, the first thing that you need to do when you're starting with InScribe is just to set up your community initially. So somebody has authorized, sort of opened up InScribe as an LTI item in my course. And when I first click on it, what it will do is it will kick off the setup process for me. And I just want to start here to point out a couple of things. So one, if you're brand new to InScribe, you're just going to say, I need to create a new community. And what that workflow will do is it'll create a community. It'll fill that community with some example topics, a little bit of content for you, like welcome content, as a way for you to get started. And then as we'll see in a minute, all of that is fully customizable. So it's kind of a brand new community when you're just getting started. But you can see here, you also have the option of linking to an existing community. So this is really where that point around, maybe I used InScribe last semester and I've built up all this great content. I don't want to start again. So I'll be able to find my existing community here. Or let's say I'm teaching, 5 sections of a particular class and I want them all to use the same InScribe community on my side. Well, once I've got that all set up and ready to go, all I do is just link my individual sections to that same community. So lots of flexibility in terms of how you go. So I just clicked use this community. You saw it popped right in. Now everything is hooked up and ready to go for me and for my students. In this case, the community has some content already in it. So, maybe I'm mid-semester or I used this last semester and I can see some of the content that's available. If you had started with a brand new community, there would be some topics, a little bit of welcome content, and then of course, space for you and your students to generate additional information along the way. I hear a lot of activity in the chat. Anything you want me to address?
Nope, I'm not seeing anything coming in.
Oh, I don't know what, something's clicking in my ears. It must be a different device trying to speak to me. Okay, great. So here's, for example, I'm using this community in my section 3, but over here I have, my section 2, and when I launch it, I'm going to launch right to that same community. So that's how we can bring those together. Now, it's very common to also just use InScribe for a single course section. So that's possible as well. Just know that you have those options and it's really easy to get it set up. So now that we're in the community, let's talk a little bit about kind of the student's experience. So the student has come to the community, and one of the first things they might want to do is just browse or understand what content is available to them by topic area. So here's a list of the topics that have been created for this particular InScribe community. These are fully customizable. So we'll look in a minute at where you can go to create those topics or edit them along the way. But in this case, I've created some general topics and then ones that align to each of the weeks that my students would be learning. So let's say I want to go, we're in week 1 and I'm really concerned about what's going on. So I'm going to jump into week 1 and see what's available to me. So I'm in week 1, and now what we've done is we've filtered all of the content in InScribe down to the things that are going to be most relevant to that student. So every question and resource that we see here is specific to that topic area. So I can kind of browse to see if there's something useful to me. I can also search. So the entire content repository of InScribe is fully searchable. So again, reinforcing for students that if that question has already been asked and answered, why don't you go ahead and take advantage of the resources that are already there. Now, we also know that students don't always go to the search process when they have a question, and sometimes they'll bypass it. So one of the things that we've added to the platform to, again, kind of reinforce that if that answer is there, please take advantage, is if a student goes to ask a question. So let's say we say, I'm trying to figure out what's going on about parabolas. You'll see what's popped in down here is, this is Rosie, and she's the AI and technology layer that kind of lives within InScribe and is helping facilitate the moderation for you. So one of the places that Rosie pops up is right here. So I skipped search, I went right to asking a question, but she's still going to kind of nudge the student towards the resources that are already here. Because maybe this really does answer my question, and now I've avoided a duplicate question being posted in the community. Now, it's possible that doesn't answer my question. I really do have a brand new question. So I'm going to post another one here. A couple of things that you'll note. So of course, you can use just text whenever you're posting, but you can also bring in images, videos. You can insert links to other platforms. We also have, for example, an equation editor and other tools that students can use. So you can form really rich, questions and answers in the platform. Now, some of these are very relevant to us in an algebra course, but InScribe gets used in topics of all different shapes and sizes. So we're used in English language courses, STEM and engineering classes, other sort of humanities classes. But just know that these tools are available, and they often are, students will often take advantage of them. One other thing to note here is that when a student goes to post, now we talked a little bit about this idea of how do you encourage shy students to kind of raise their hand and step forward. Well, one is just having this platform available where they can kind of take their time to formulate their question. The other is we've given them a couple of options about how they post their question. So by default, the question is going to get posted and the other classmates can see it. They may also choose to post just to the moderators of the community. So that would be you and perhaps your teaching assistants who are in there helping you. That way, it becomes almost a private conversation. And then the third option is to post anonymously. So in this case, their identity would be hidden. The other students in the community would not know who they are, but the moderators of the community will always know. So it's not 100% anonymous. You can still see it on the back end, but it's kind of hiding their identity from the other students, which some students really prefer, and it helps kind of get them used to participating in the community. So I'm just going to post it generally. You can see because I was in week 1, it automatically tagged my post to that topic. We don't always want to rely on people to tag themselves, but I could re-tag it if I wanted to or add additional tags.
Katie, we have a quick question here.
Yeah.
So you talked about adding a video to through the editor. Does that mean recording a video question as well?
So the videos right now are recorded outside the platform and then brought in. So you're not directly recording in InScribe, although that is something on the roadmap. So likely to be available toward the end of 2021.
Thank you. The other question we have is in regards to using Piazza discussion boards, and are we familiar with them? As well as, do we have any partners that have used InScribe that either also use Piazza or have replaced Piazza with InScribe?
So we are familiar with Piazza, obviously solving a very similar problem in the classroom. We do have several partners who have actually made that transition over to InScribe, and probably more that are using them simultaneously. Indiana University is a great example. They've had a number of educators switch over to using InScribe this year. So I think, if you're used to using Piazza in the classroom, this will make a lot of sense to you. It has some additional components, I think, that we've heard from others, like the Rosie feature, that has been really helpful for them. But yeah, I would think about them in that way.
Thanks.
Any others? Okay.
Yes, one just came up. Who would make a great moderator in InScribe communities? Who
would be a great moderator? So in the academic use case, I always recommend that faculty, and if you have it, TAs are added as moderators for the community, because they're the ones that are probably getting the questions anyway, and so they can provide great answers. In addition, your students, if you have really high performing students, or maybe students who have demonstrated a real ability to help each other in the community, we often have communities where they get promoted to a level of moderator status and get to have a little bit more authority in the community. But what we'll see in a second is anybody in the community can be a participant in terms of both asking and answering. So one of the great things about a platform like this is deputizing all of your students to really help you manage Q&A. And of course, the benefits that come with that in terms of when a student answers another student, how much they're reinforcing their own learning, comes along for the ride. And then as an instructor, one less thing that you have to answer. So let's take a look at that. It's a great segue into this. So if I post this question, you can see it now appears right here within this topic area. Also important to note that the system has now sent notifications out to all the members of the community. So you don't have to be checking InScribe all the time to understand what's going on. We will reach out to you and let you know when things are happening. And you can click right back from that notification to interact with or answer the question that you see. We'll take a look at those in a minute. Notifications are really flexible and customizable. So you and your students can adjust them to be kind of what you're looking for in terms of being alerted about activity. Now, once this question is posted, again, and we'll come back to this in a second. So one of the things that we talked about is the faculty member is not the only one that can answer. So students can also jump in and answer, and there's really no limit to the number of answers that could be provided. So here's a quick answer that I'm going to post. Sometimes it's one and done, or sometimes we see there's 3 or 4 different great answers that can come in. Now you'll see that I, as a faculty member, carry this little badge with me. So anywhere that I post, this moderator badge will appear, and your TAs would have something similar. If this were a student response, it wouldn't have that badge. But if it was a really great answer and I saw it, well, I don't want to take the time to write that again. So what I would do is I would endorse that response. So I add that little badge. The student now gets credit for providing a great answer, and all the other students can see that visual cue that this is the response that sort of sanctioned or approved by the leaders in the community as well. And again, I meant to point out one other thing here. So if another student comes in, let's say before this question was answered, and they have the same question, they can provide some feedback. So one thing they could do is they could provide a reaction to that question, including like a thumbs up, which is a great way to say either great question or, hey, I'm kind of worrying about this as well. The other thing they could do is they could follow that question. So if it's something I want to make sure I get alerted about, what an answer comes in, I'll follow it. And now the system will make sure that I'm getting updates as those responses come in. And of course, you can also provide feedback on answers that come into the platform. It's a great way for students to give back kudos to each other, and also just for you to see visually what are the questions and answers that seem to be most popular and that students are really engaging with. A couple of things I want to touch on. So this is our embedded view that we've been working from here. And it lives, again, within the learning management system, loading in an iframe. And there's a couple of other great features in here. So as a student, I can see all of the questions, for example, that are just relevant to me. I can also quickly see that there's some new activity on one of the items that's relevant to me. So I might want to jump in there and take a look at it. And I can also see, who's been active in here and what questions are unanswered. So from a student's perspective, they will often spend the majority of their time working with InScribe from this view. And that works really well for them. One of the things that you can do as a faculty member to make that process even easier for them, when we came in here, the first thing the student did was navigate to the topic that was important to them or relevant to them. You can also create links in your courses that automatically take students to those topics. So we think about those as deep links. Here's an example of that. We're in week 1, quadratic equations. Here's all my content for the course. And then we've authored this link, and you'll see when we click it, it's going to automatically take us to that topic area. And adding those links is really easy. I'll just show you how we do that really quickly. So I go into a module, I go find my InScribe tool. You can choose different types of links. So some of these will launch you out to InScribe in a new tab, but in this case, we're going to do that embedded homepage. Let me grab that topic that was important to me. And then in Canvas, you can rename it to whatever you want, and then add the item to the course, publish it, and now it's ready to go. And these links, once you've authored them, will copy over with your course term over term. So you don't have to recreate these items every term when you want to be able to add be able to add these deep links for your students. So again, this is kind of the main way that students are navigating the platform. Of course, a lot of faculty and TAs will also use this view. But also, if you want a bigger view or sort of more holistic, you can also link out to InScribe, in its own tab. And now you're really looking at all of the content, in one location. So here on the home page, we've got all of our weeks listed week by week, and then a couple of other tools in here that I think are really helpful. So just like we saw in the embedded homepage, you can quickly get to anything that doesn't have a response. So making sure that everything gets answered or everybody gets acknowledged. As a moderator, you also have a few other tools. So maybe somebody, like a student, has responded to a question, but no moderator has engaged with that question. They either no moderator response or no endorsement of a student answer. So you can quickly jump just to the items that have no moderator response to make sure that you're in there interacting and providing a solution. And of course you can keep, yeah.
Quick question, I'm going to interrupt you here. So
yeah, please do.
This question came in multiple forms from multiple attendees, so I just want to make sure
Okay.
to address it. What happens if one of your student moderators answers a question incorrectly?
Yes, so usually, so if the normal setup in a community would be your students are participants and you and your TAs are moderators. So let's think of that scenario where no students have been upgraded to moderator status. If a student were to, let's say, provide an incorrect answer, there's a couple of things you can do as a moderator. So let's get back to so let's find a post that has a number of responses. So we'll just say that this particular post is incorrect for some reason. So I have a couple of options. One is I can always edit or delete a post. So I could either adjust that post and then reach out to the student and let them know, or I could actually just remove that post altogether. And again, sort of let that student know why that post was removed. Most of the educators that we work with say that incorrect posts are uncommon, but when they do happen, it's a great learning opportunity to jump in there and correct, because that misconception that that student has used to respond to that is probably one that lots of your students have. And so being able to, in a way that everybody can participate in, say, actually, I see why, like, for example, I see why you thought that it's not correct. This is the misconception that you have. Now means you're solving that misconception for your whole population of students, rather than either missing it altogether or just course correcting that one individual. So those would be some examples that I'd give.
Perfect. We're all caught up in the chat. So please, if you have any questions, be sure to put them in there or ask through the Q&A feature.
Thank you, Danielle. So one other feature that we've seen pop up a couple of times is this flag. And it's one of the things as a moderator, you can get to all the items that are flagged. Now, I, as a moderator, can flag things myself. Usually a moderator would do that if they wanted somebody else to take a look at a question and respond to it, or it just needed a longer answer and I don't have time to complete it right now, so I just want to flag it for myself so I can easily get back to it later. But also the system is designed to flag things for you. So you can see that this particular item was flagged by Rosie. And the reason, so this is another feature of Rosie, is to kind of help you navigate to the students or the conversations that need your attention the most. And she does this in two ways. One is you can just give us a list of keywords. And if one of those keywords ever appears in a conversation, Rosie will flag the post and escalate it to you. What's actually happening in this example is that Rosie has run the conversation through a sentiment API and is assessing the emotion of the post and can kind of tell, like, this is a student who's getting really frustrated, is kind of, feeling a little bit like they can't get through what they're trying to struggle with. And so she's going to flag that as a post that's negative emotion is getting a little high, and then reach out to you and say, hey, maybe this is a post that needs attention right away, or maybe this is the student that really needs somebody to reach out to them directly to get past this challenge. So again, those are the features that we're leveraging Rosie and the AI and technology so that you're not having to necessarily always know everything that's going on in the platform, but using the technology to help you stay on top of things and know where to direct your energy. Okay, great. So those are just a couple of the moderation tools that we have in here. I also, since I said I would do this, I want to make sure I do. There's lots of ways for you to customize the platform. So as we jumped over into here, I'll kind of orient us to where we are. So we're in this college algebra community. That's the one that was linked to your course. And you're in the InScribe organization. So this logo would be customized to your institution. And you might be in one community or you may be in multiple communities. It kind of depends how you have set up your system. And then in here, we can see we have these topics. And so those topics are fully customizable. You just go to your topics page. You can easily add a topic, edit or remove topics. You can provide descriptions for students so they understand what that topic's for and how to use it. And you can kind of quickly see from here where are the topics that are getting the most activity and engagement. That kind of leads us to the other component, which is about just general activity and analytics in your platform. So as a moderator, you have a couple of tools. One is you have an administration area where you can see all the members of your community, and you can change their roles or make adjustments to them. You can also go in to see specifically what they've been up to. So you can see an overview of the types of contributions and participation that they've had. And you can also go into that to see specifically what are the activities, maybe the questions that they've asked or the answers that they've provided. You can also see on this page that this profile tells you a little bit about Alyssa. It's fully customizable by the student, so they could come in here and change their picture, add a little information about themselves. And this is also where the reputation system is displayed. So InScribe, is generally a voluntary system. Students are participating in it because they need help or because they want to help other people. But we want to incentivize students and also give them credit for the work that they're doing in their communities. And so the reputation system is designed to do that. We think about it across these three angles. So what are you asking or contributing? How are you answering? And are your answers impactful? So are you getting upvotes? Are you getting endorsements on your answers? And then we also really focus on what we call the good listener piece of it. Not every member of a community is going to be the one raising their hand all the time, asking all the questions out there, joining in, but they'll be the people who are being diligent about answering their own questions and consuming the content that you and their other classmates are providing. And so giving people credit for that type of activity, we think is really important as well. Also, as a administrator, or sorry, as a moderator in your community, you can see the analytics of your community. So you can see who's in there, how active is your community day over day, what is it that people are doing in your community? Are they asking a lot of questions? Are they answering a lot of questions? And then again, what are they consuming? So are they, you created a resource, are they actually looking at that resource? Or somebody asked and answered a question, are people actually engaging with that? And you can also export this data. So if you want to take it out into a flat file that you can use to analyze or give students credit for participation, or combine with other data, you can easily do that here and just set your start and end dates. As I went through that, I realized I skipped one part of the platform that I do want to touch on because I think it's pretty unique to InScribe. Not a lot of these sort of support systems have this capability in place, and that's the resources area. So the question and answer space is very student driven. That's where a lot of your activity is going to be there. But we also find that a lot of our faculty have these supplemental resources or content that they want to make available to students as well. And so we created an ability for them to do that here. So I'll just show you really quickly. It's really easy to add a new resource. And these resources might be things that you author natively in InScribe, or they might be videos or links or documents that you want to upload either from other systems or linking out to other systems. And then when you go to publish it, when you create it, it's in a draft, so it would not be visible to your students. And then when you're ready, you would publish it, tag it to the particular topics, and hit save. And now that resource will automatically be available to students. I would say that most people we work with have some set of these resources that are already around. And by putting them in InScribe, they get, first of all, the utilization of the resources goes way up because they're right in front of the students and they're tagged to the things the students are thinking about. And they also now have the ability for students to give you feedback. So they can tell you if the resource was helpful or not. I can actually ask additional questions off those resources that you've provided. So they become these really interactive elements of the classroom. The other thing that we see is that sometimes a student will ask a question, and rather than just write out an answer, the faculty members might say, oh, that's such a great question. I'm going to create a short video that describes the answer, add that to the resource repository, and then provide the answers that way. And the way that that would work is you create the resource, and then you go into, let's say, an individual question. And when I go to provide my answer, I'm gonna actually associate it to that resource that I just built. There we go. So I'll say, oh, check out this resource. And now you've not only answered that student's question, but now you've added to that general knowledge repository for all the students. All right, so let me take a quick pause. I see there is something in the Q&A area.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. So we have a quick question in regards to notifications that came up while you were talking about Rosie. So
Okay.
how are you notified and how often are you notified about posts or red flags?
So anything that's a red flag, you will be updated immediately. But you can designate who gets those alerts. So you can say it just goes to me, or it goes to me and this set of TAs. So you have control over who's getting those notifications. Other notifications out of the platform about general activity you would set the defaults for that, but by default, they're going to go to everyone. And then the individual members of the community can go into their notification settings to adjust their notification so it works for them. And there's 3 options right now, so you can get those emails right away. You can ask the system to summarize everything into a daily digest, which they would get once in the afternoon, or you can just turn those notifications off altogether. One of the key features that we've added recently is separating the notifications for member contributions versus moderator contributions. So if I'm in a huge class and there's a ton going on, I might say, for the other members of my community, just tell me in a daily digest what's happening. But if my instructor posts something, I want to know about that right away. And so you can now separate and have a slight nuance in terms of how you get those notifications. We will be adding some text and mobile notifications coming this year. So again, look for those in sort of the fall 21 timeframe.
Thank you. The next question is there ever any inappropriate content posted?
So it's funny. I continue to say in all the years that we've been doing this, we have never had a student post something like truly inappropriate in the community. And I think part of that is that the communities are not anonymous. So as we saw on that profile page, a student can change their visibility to the other students of the community, but I can always see as a moderator who that person is and and be able to contact them. But with that said, we understand that that can be a concern. So that's one of the things that Rosie can do with those keywords. So we have a very extensive list of inappropriate terms that Rosie can look for. And if she sees one of those, she'll flag it again and make sure that you know right away so you can come in and intervene. One of the options too that you have, if a question gets posted and you're not, the question just doesn't seem like it's appropriate for the community, rather than just edit or delete that post, you can move it into moderator only status. So this one already is, but if it was visible to all the members, you could say like, all right, I'm going to change this to a private conversation so you and I can talk, but now the other members of the community are not participating or seeing what we're doing. Awesome. Any other questions?
So we have one that just came in about their LMS. So they don't use Canvas, they use D2L. How long does it take to set up the integration with D2L, and what's that look like?
So in all cases, if you're using any of the standard LMSs, including D2L, it's just a simple LTI integration. So we'll generate the key and secret for you. That generally takes a couple of days because we'll set up your organization and get you the key and secret. And then it's just a matter of connecting with your LMS admin. The work on their part is about 3 minutes to actually configure the tool and have it appear in your courses. So that's true of, really, if you're using Blackboard, D2L, Moodle, Canvas, it's very quick process. So these are really easy to get up and running. I should have mentioned that earlier. Especially for this classroom model, we could get you up and running in less than a week. So if it's something you're interested in using, even for the summer term, if you've got a summer term coming up and you want to try it out, let us know. We can absolutely accommodate you in that time frame.
All right, any more questions? Go ahead and put them in the chat and we'll make sure they get answered live.
Awesome. So that really covers the main, features of the platform, really the benefits and how it gets used for students and faculty, um, and sort of the simplicity of how we set it up. I hope that it was useful in understanding all of that. And of course, happy to provide any additional information or feedback. If there's anything that we missed that you want to make sure that we cover, definitely let us know. And if you're interested in talking to any of our existing clients who have been using it, we're happy to provide those references as well. All right.